You think you know who this old man is. You are convinced that his image is a kind fairy tale created to brighten the children's darkest days of the year. White beard, red coat, a sack of gifts. You see in him a symbol of generosity. But what if I told you that all of this is merely a complex, multi-layered camouflage? What if, behind the mask of the benevolent grandfather, hides something so ancient and alien to human nature that our brain simply refuses to perceive the truth, replacing it with a comforting illusion? We are used to considering dead Moros, Santa Claus, Chulupuki, and other winter gift-bringers as simply different national versions of the same folklore character. But we decided to go further than simple cultural comparisons. We loaded over 500,000 historical documents into the analytical core of the Logos 7 system. These weren't just children's tales. We fed the algorithm ancient manuscripts, texts of incantations, interrogation protocols from the Inquisition, reports from 19th century ethnographic expeditions, and even data on climatic anomalies over the last 4,000 years. The task we set for the system was simple. Find the primary source. Find that very 0 point from which this image emerged. And when Logos 7 finished processing the data, the result made us shudder. There was no image of a holy elder on the monitors. The system issued a warning about a critical match with predator behavior patterns. We are not dealing with a myth. We are dealing with an object that has been visiting humanity for millennia, changing names like gloves, but retaining its terrifying essence. This is Chapter 1, Protocol, Archetype. Let's start with what lies on the surface. Modern mass culture tries to convince us that the visual image of Santa Claus in a red suit was popularized by the Coca-Cola Company in 1931. This is a convenient lie. It is a screen behind which the truth is hidden. When we asked Logos 7 to analyze the spectral composition of the vestments of winter deities over the last 2,000 years, the system revealed a frightening pattern. Red was always present, but it is not the color of celebration. In archaic cultures, red combined with white fur symbolized only one thing: blood on snow. It is the color of sacrifice. Let's turn to Slavic roots. What we call dead Moros, Grandfather Frost, today bore the name Karachun, or Trescan in antiquity. The Logos 7 system analyzed the linguistic roots of these names and cross-referenced them with weather data from those eras. The conclusion is unambiguous. These entities did not give gifts. Karachun was the lord of darkness and the underworld. The day of his worship fell on the winter solstice, the longest and most terrifying night of the year. Ancient Slavs believed that on this night, the boundary between worlds thins, and he enters our world. Logos 7. Discovered descriptions of rituals in the chronicles that a modern person would call monstrous. People did not expect gifts from Karachun. On the contrary, they brought gifts to him so that he would not freeze their livestock and kill the winter crops. It was a racketeering scheme on a planetary scale. You give me a sacrifice, and I preserve your life. Here is the true contract that lies at the foundation of the holiday. The system highlighted a key algorithm: exchange of resources for survival. Later, in the process of cultural adaptation, the vector shifted, and the menacing spirit became a giver. But, as the analysis shows, the essence of the exchange remained the same. Behave well, and you will receive a reward. Behave badly, and the consequences will be irreversible. Let's dig deeper. Let's move to Northern Europe. The Logos 7 system conducted a correlation analysis between the image of Santa Claus and the supreme god of the Scandinavians, Odin. The coincidences revealed by the artificial intelligence mathematically cannot be accidental. The probability of such a coincidence is less than 1/100%. Look for yourself. Odin was depicted as a tall old man with a long white beard. Familiar, isn't it? He traveled across the sky during Yule, the midwinter festival. But the most interesting thing lies in the details of the transport. Santa Claus, according to classical tradition, drives a sleigh drawn by 8 reindeer. Exactly 8. The 9th reindeer, Rudolph, appeared only in the 20th century as a marketing ploy. Now let's look at Odin. His horse, Sleipnir, had 8 legs. Logo 7 interprets this as a distortion in the transmission of visual information across generations. Eyewitnesses saw something with 8 support points, or 8 propulsion modules moving through the air. For an ancient Viking, it was an 8-legged horse. For a resident of the 19th century, it was a team of 8 reindeer. But the essence of the object remains unchanged. It is an aerial vehicle with 8 engines. Odin led the wild hunt, a procession of ghosts sweeping across the winter sky. Those who met them on the way faced death or abduction. The system conducted a semantic analysis of the legends of the wild hunt and found a hidden pattern. These legends often mention the disappearance of people and the appearance of strange objects. Is the sack of gifts not an inversion of a collection sack? What if the original function of the object was not distribution, but extraction? Let's move further along the timeline. Ancient Rome, Saturnalia, a festival in honor of the god Saturn, which also took place in December. During these days, slaves sat at the same table as masters. Everyone exchanged gifts, and merriment reigned. It would seem, here it is, the root of goodness. But Logo 7 knows no pity for our illusions. The system pulled up the mythological dossier on Saturn. In Greek tradition, he is known as Cronus, a titan who devoured his own children so they would not overthrow him. Iconographic analysis shows an old man with a sickle or scythe. This sickle symbolized not only the harvest, but also the death of time. The old year died so the new one could be born, and this transition required blood. Logo 7 found a direct link between the figure of Saturn and the image of dead Moros. Both are lords of time. Both are old men. Both require ritual behavior. But the most terrible discovery of the system lies in the following. In all ancient cultures, this archetype is linked to population control. Cronus devours children. Karachun freezes everything living. Krampus, the dark companion of St. Nicholas, carries children away in a sack. We loaded data into the system about the so-called naughty list. In the modern world, this is a harmless scare tactic. But Logo 7 identified this as a vestige of a global selection system. The algorithm embedded in the basis of the legend clearly divides human specimens into 2 categories: suitable and unsuitable. Those who meet the system's criteria receive encouragement, a gift. Those who break the rules are subject to exclusion or punishment. This is not morality. This is eugenics. This is a program for sorting biological material. Another marker we cannot ignore is the location, the North. Why specifically the North? Lapland, Veliki Ustyug, the North Pole. All legends point to the fact that the object's home is located in a zone of extreme cold, unsuitable for human life. Logo 7 cross-reference these coordinates with magnetic anomaly maps. The North Pole is the entry and exit point for Earth's magnetic field lines. If we assume we are dealing with a technological object, the pole is the ideal place for recharging or camouflage. No biological species resembling a human would choose an ice desert as its home voluntarily. It is the choice of a machine or a creature with a completely different physiology. Let's return to appearance. The beard. Why the beard? In every culture from Japan to Iceland, the winter spirit hides the lower part of his face. We consider this a sign of age and wisdom. But the Logo 7 system, having analyzed thousands of images, put forward the hypothesis of facial camouflage. Thick facial hair, or what we mistake for it, conceals a lack of facial mimicry or a non-human jaw structure. Remember how often in cheap horror movies the monster hides its face? Here the principle is the same, only the disguise has held for thousands of years. The system paid special attention to the staff. Dead Moros never parts with his staff. In fairy tales, he uses it to summon cold, freeze rivers, or light up the tree. Logo 7 classifies this item not as a walking support, but as a directed energy impact tool. Textual analysis shows that the staff is always the source of power. Without it, the old man loses a significant part of his might. Touching with the staff causes an instantaneous change in the aggregate state of matter. Water turns to ice. This is described in hundreds of testimonies. From the point of view of physics, such instantaneous freezing requires a colossal extraction of thermal energy. This is cryogenic freezing technology packaged in a portable device. Ancient people seeing this device operate could only describe it as a magic staff. We also ran data through the system regarding the object's companion, Snegorochka, the Snow Maiden. In the Western tradition, she doesn't exist. They have elves. But in our culture, she plays a key role. Who is she? Granddaughter? Daughter? Folklore gives contradictory answers. The earliest version of the legend of Snegorochka speaks of a girl made of snow and ice who came to life. Logo 7 interprets this literally: the creation of an artificial life form based on carbon and water at low temperatures. She was not born. She was constructed. She is an auxiliary unit tied to the main object. Her melting in the spring is not death. It is deactivation, or the completion of the exploitation cycle of a biorobot that cannot withstand temperatures rising above a certain threshold. Now let's put these fragments together. The Logo 7 system builds a frighteningly clear picture before us. Throughout human history on different continents at different times, the appearance of the same object is recorded. Object characteristics: humanoid type, concealing its face, uses weather control technology and cryogenic weaponry, staff, moves on a flying vehicle with 8 engines, horses, deer, active during the period of minimal solar activity, winter solstice, conducts global monitoring of human behavior, exchanges resources for loyalty or extracts biological material. Official science calls this an archetype, the collective unconscious. But Logo 7 rejects the coincidence version. Too many details match with technical precision. The probability that different peoples, separated by oceans and millennia, invented the exact same 8-legged celestial horse, or the exact same ritual of descending through a chimney, approaches 0. The chimney, by the way, is a separate topic. Why through a pipe? Why through fire? This is a classic scenario of infiltration into a secured dwelling. But we will talk about this in the following chapters. It is important to understand one thing. Dead Moraz is not a name. It is a call sign. It is a position. Or more likely, it is the name of a program. A program launched thousands of years ago that continues to work to this day. We perceive his arrival as a holiday because our ancestors learned to appease him. They turned the terror of the cold deity of death into a ritual of expecting gifts. This is Stockholm Syndrome on a strictly human scale. We fell in love with our warden. We decorate the tree, an ancient symbol of the world tree and a sacrificial post, to show him. We remember the rules. We are yours. Do not touch us. The Logo 7 system is currently completing data processing on the query Kronos. In the next chapter, we will touch upon what seems absolutely impossible from the point of view of classical physics. We will dissect that very New Year's Eve. How can one object visit millions of homes in a few hours? We are used to writing this off as magic, but the data shows that manipulation of time itself is involved here. Everything you knew about the kind grandfather crumbles to dust when you look at the dry figures of the report. The ancient gods didn't leave. They just changed their image. Karachun put on a red kaftan. Odin switched from a horse to a sleigh. Saturn hid his scythe in a sack. But the gaze with which they look at us from the depths of centuries remains just as cold and evaluating. He is still checking us. He is still making lists. And he still comes when the sun dies and the world plunges into darkness. Get ready. In the next chapter, we will crack open the mechanism of how he stops time. And believe me, the physics of this process is far more terrifying than any fairy tales about evil spirits. This is not magic. This is technology thousands of years ahead of us, and it is aimed at us. Welcome back to the Zone of Truth. In the first chapter, we tore off the mask of the benevolent grandfather and saw beneath it the face of an ancient, cold, and demanding deity. We proved that this image is an archetype accompanying humanity for millennia. But now we move from history and mythology to hard physics. We are entering territory where the laws of the universe familiar to us break like dry twigs. Today we will dissect the main paradox of the legend, what adults call magic with a condescending smile, and scientists prefer to ignore, so as not to go insane. We are talking about the night of delivery. Think for a second, just imagine the scale of the task. The official version states, 1 old man, 1 sleigh, and 1 sack must visit every home where there is a child within 1 night. We are used to not asking questions. We take it for granted. But we loaded the parameters of this task into the analytical core of Logos 7, and the system nearly burned out trying to model this process from the perspective of classical mechanics. Let's look at the numbers the system gave us. There are approximately 2 billion children under the age of 18 living on Earth. If we exclude those belonging to other religious confessions where this archetype is not active, and leave only those expecting a visit from Santa or dead Moros, we get, by the most modest estimates, about 378 million children. With an average statistic of 3.5 children per household, that is approximately 108 million homes. 108 million stops. Even if we account for the Earth's rotation in different time zones, which gives the object a kind of handicap, stretching the night to 31 hours, the task remains impossible for matter as we know it. Logos 7 calculated. To manage to visit all these houses, the object must make 822.6 visits per second. Listen to that number. 822 visits in 1 second. This means that for parking the sleigh, entering the house, placing gifts under the tree, eating the left-out cookies, and exiting, the object has slightly more than 1,000th of a second. For the human eye, this is not even a blink. It is a phantom. But that's not all. The scariest part begins when we try to calculate the speed of movement. The distance between houses varies, but if we take an average value, the total path the object must cover this night is about 120 million kilometers. To cover this distance in 31 hours, the sleigh must move at a speed of approximately 1,040 kilometers per second. This is 3,000 times the speed of sound. We asked Logos 7 to simulate the flight of a physical object at such speed in dense atmospheric layers. The simulation results are catastrophic. First, air resistance. At a speed of Mach 3000, any material body not protected by a force field would instantly vaporize. Friction against air molecules would create temperatures comparable to the surface of the sun. Reindeer, sleigh, the old man himself, and the gifts would turn into a stream of superheated plasma in a fraction of a second. Second, shockwave. The sonic boom from an object of this size moving at such speed would be like the continuous explosion of a nuclear warhead. If Santa really flew over rooftops at a speed of 1,000 kilometers per second, windows in all houses would be shattered, roofs torn off, and entire cities swept away by a monstrous shockwave. But this does not happen. The night is quiet. Snow falls serenely. No one hears a roar tearing the heavens apart. Third, G-forces. Logos 7. Calculated inertial forces during braking and acceleration, remember? He needs to stop 800 times a second. The overload during such maneuvers would be 17,500 Gs. For reference, a trained fighter pilot loses consciousness at 9 Gs, At 17,000 Gs, any biological organism would be smeared as a thin layer of molecules across the seat back. Bones would turn to dust, and internal organs into liquid. The conclusion of the Logos 7 system is unambiguous. The official version of flight is a lie. Physical movement in three-dimensional space at such speed is impossible without destroying the environment and the object itself. So, he doesn't fly. Or rather, he doesn't fly the way we understand it. Here we approach the concept of the anomaly chronos. The system offers two theoretical explanations that can justify the observed phenomenon without violating fundamental laws of physics, but implying the use of technologies thousands of years ahead of our development. Hypothesis 1. Distortion of the space-time continuum. Alcubierre warp bubble. Logos 7 suggests that the object's vehicle, those very sleighs, is equipped with a gravitational wave generator. This apparatus does not move through space. It compresses space in front of itself and expands it behind itself. Inside this bubble, the object is at rest. It experiences no G-forces. Air friction does not act upon it because the air around it moves with the bubble. This explains the absence of a sonic boom, but it doesn't explain the time deficit. And here, the theory of relativity comes into force. If an object controls gravity, it also controls time. Near massive gravitational fields, time slows down. We saw this in the movie Interstellar, but this is real physics. Logos 7 puts forward a terrifying theory. For Dead Moros, this night does not exist. For him, this process lasts months, or maybe years. He creates a temporal field around himself inside which time flows at a different speed. While on your clock the second hand makes one click, for him, hours pass. He calmly enters the house, looks around, does his business, and leaves. He lives at a different tempo. This explains his longevity, or rather, immortality. If he exists outside our time stream for most of his activity cycle, aging processes are practically stopped for him relative to us. He is a time traveler who makes a jump every year on the same date, but in a stretched instant for himself. But this hypothesis has a weak spot: energy. To curve space-time on such a scale requires energy equivalent to the mass of Jupiter. Where does he get it? Logos 7 points to the mention of the staff. In the first chapter, we talked about it as a cryogenic weapon. But what if it's not just a weapon? What if it is a portable zero-point reactor? Or even scarier, a device for siphoning energy from our world? Remember the cold? Cold is the absence of energy. Perhaps by freezing everything around, he simply feeds on the thermal energy of our world to refuel his chrono engine. Hypothesis 2. Quantum superposition. This version, proposed by Logos 7, is even more insane, but it fits perfectly into the canvas of quantum physics. What if Dead Moros is not a single material object moving from point A to point B? What if he is a macroscopic quantum object? In quantum mechanics, an electron can be in multiple places simultaneously until it is measured. This is called superposition. Logos 7 assumes that the entity we call Dead Moros possesses the ability to enter a state of quantum uncertainty on a global scale. On the night of December 31st to January 1st, he does not fly to each house in turn. He is in all houses simultaneously. He exists as a wave function distributed across the entire planet. That is precisely why he cannot be seen. As soon as you try to see him, the wave function collapses. The observer destroys the state of superposition. Recall the main rule: he won't come until you fall asleep. Parents have told children this for centuries. Why? Because a sleeping child is not an active observer. Consciousness is switched off. The quantum state is preserved. As soon as a child opens their eyes, the system registers observation, and the object disappears from that point of reality so as not to violate the paradox. This also explains how he gets into closed houses. For a quantum wave, walls do not exist. The quantum tunneling effect allows a particle to pass through any barrier, if the probability of this event is non-zero. And for a creature controlling probabilities, walls simply do not exist. Logo 7 analyzed hundreds of thousands of letters from children. Many write, "I heard footsteps, but when I opened my eyes, no one was there." This is a classic description of wave function collapse. The object was there while it was heard, but vanished as soon as an attempt was made to fix it visually. But let's return to the concept of chronos, time. We examined transportation technologies, but there is one more aspect the system highlighted with a red marker. It is the date itself, winter solstice, the change of the year. Why this specific moment? Ancients believed that in these days, old time dies, and new time is born. Logo 7 found a strange correlation. At the moment of transition from December 31st to January 1st, microscopic glitches in atomic clocks are recorded all over the planet. They are negligible, nanoseconds, but they exist, and they are synchronized with the movement of time zones, as if someone or something is performing a system reboot, as if our reality is a huge computer simulation, and New Year is the maintenance moment when the server updates. And Dead Moraz in this paradigm is not a kind wizard, nor even an alien. He is a system administrator, or an autonomous debugging protocol. Think about it. What does he do? He checks every node of the network, every child. He updates the status, good, bad. He makes changes to the local environment, gifts, punishments. And he does this at the moment when the system is most vulnerable and open to intervention, in the timelessness of the year change. Logo 7 conducted a linguistic analysis of the phrase, "Happy New Year." In most languages, it sounds like a statement of fact regarding the arrival of something new. But in archaic dialects, the meaning is closer to "with new time" or "with new cycle." The object restarts the cycle. Without his intervention, perhaps time would simply stop. There is another eerie aspect revealed by analyzing the planet's heat map on New Year's Eve. We mentioned that such technologies require colossal energy. Logo 7 recorded that on New Year's Eve, the total temperature in residential zones drops slightly faster than meteorological models predict. This deviation is hundredths of a degree, but on a planetary scale, it is gigawatts of energy. He takes the heat. Your heat. The heat of your homes. That very frost he brings is not just weather. It is a side effect of his engines or his processors working. Entropy grows. He sucks energy from the surrounding space to perform his impossible raid. And finally, the sack. In the first chapter, we talked about the sack as a possible collection device. But in the context of spatial physics, Logo 7 defines the sack as a pocket dimension, or portable wormhole. It is physically impossible to fit millions of boxes with construction sets and dolls into one fabric sack with a volume of 1.5 cubic meters. This is geometric absurdity. However, if the neck of the sack is the event horizon of a tiny black hole, or the entrance to a tesseract, a four-dimensional cube, then the volume problem disappears. Inside the sack, there could be an entire warehouse complex the size of a city, or a direct portal to the manufacturing factory. The old man simply reaches his hand through space and pulls out the required item. This is confirmed by the fact that he always pulls out exactly what a specific child needs without wasting time searching. The indexing system inside this spatial pocket must be perfect, or the sack synthesizes objects upon request. But we will analyze the origin of gifts in detail in the chapter Resource. Let's summarize the analysis of Chapter 2. We are dealing with an object that ignores classical aerodynamics and inertia, likely uses warp drive technology, warp bubble, or exists in a state of quantum superposition, is capable of manipulating the flow of time, stretching one night into months of subjective time, uses spatial compression technologies to transport cargo, tesseract sack, consumes a colossal amount of energy, likely absorbing thermal energy from the environment. This is not a fairy tale. This is a demonstration of power inaccessible to our understanding. Every New Year's Eve, a complex special operation using reality-altering technologies unfolds above our heads. And we, instead of being horrified, light sparklers. But there is a question that scares even more than, how does he do it? The question is, how does he know? To deliver the right gift to the right child, one needs not just to control time. One needs to possess absolute total information. One needs to know every deed, every word, every secret desire of millions of people. In the next chapter, we activate Protocol Omniscience. We will dissect the global surveillance system, compared to which modern intelligence agencies and internet algorithms will seem like a childish spy game. He knows when you are sleeping. He knows when you're awake. This isn't a song. It is a description of the functionality of an ideal surveillance system. We will find out exactly how he collects data. Does he use a spy network? Or does he read information directly from our brains through some field? Logo 7 has already found strange patents and biological markers that might be the key to the riddle. Stay with us. You have no idea how transparent your life is to the one who comes from the cold. We continue to crack the codes of the most massive operation in human history. In the previous chapters, we established that Dead Moroz is an ancient archetype utilizing time and space management technologies unavailable to modern science. We found that the physics of his movements contradicts our understanding of the world, but fits perfectly into theories of quantum mechanics and gravitational warping. But there is an aspect that frightens me far more than supersonic sleighs or a sack with a black hole inside. Transportation technologies are just logistics. It is a delivery tool. But for logistics to work, information is needed. Precise, absolute, comprehensive information. Think about the words every child in the English-speaking world knows by heart. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. We are used to perceiving this as part of a holiday song. But the Logo 7 system, having analyzed this text as a declaration of intent, classified it as an ultimatum of a total digital concentration camp. Today we activate Vector Omniscience. We will dissect exactly how this object conducts global surveillance on a third of the planet's population. We will prove that the concept of Big Brother from the novel 1984 is child's play compared to what Dead Moroz has created. Let's start with the volume of data. We already talked about the numbers. Hundreds of millions of children. For each of them, a personal dossier must be kept. It is not just a name and address. It is real-time behavioral analysis. The Logo 7 system calculated the required memory volume to store the history of one child's actions for 1 year. If we account for not just actions, but intentions, spoken words, and even emotional outbursts, that is terabytes of data daily. Multiply that by hundreds of millions. We get yottabytes of information. To process such a data stream, server capacities exceeding the total power of all supercomputers on Earth, from the Pentagon to Google, by thousands of times are needed. Where are these data centers? Why don't we see thermal radiation from their operation? Logo 7 suggests that the data storage is not on Earth. Information is likely transmitted via quantum entanglement instantly to a remote processing center, possibly located on the dark side of the moon or in the Kuiper Belt. But how does he receive this data? What are his eyes and ears? For a long time, we thought this was a metaphor. God sees everything. Dead Moroz knows everything. But Logo 7 is a materialistic system. It does not believe in mystical omniscience. It looks for sensors, and it found them. Hypothesis 1. Biological drones. In the first chapter, we mentioned Odin, the prototype of Santa. Odin had 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin. Their names translate as thought and memory. Every morning, Odin sent them to fly around the world, and by evening they returned and told him everything they saw. Logo 7 interprets this unequivocally. the use of autonomous reconnaissance drones. In ancient times, people mistook them for birds. Today, the spectrum has expanded. Have you ever wondered why birds, bullfinches, tits, cardinals, are so often present on New Year's cards and decor? Why do they always sit on branches near windows? The system analyzed the behavior of urban fauna in the winter period. A statistically anomalous number of birds is observed specifically near the windows of children's rooms. We believe these are not birds. These are bio-robot spies conducting visual and audio surveillance. They collect primary information and transmit it to a unified network. Hypothesis 2. Trojan horse. Elf on the shelf. In Western culture in recent decades, a frightening phenomenon has appeared: the elf on the shelf. A doll that parents place in the house which, according to legend, flies to Santa every night with a report. Logo 7 sees this as the legalization of surveillance. We ourselves voluntarily bring a surveillance device into our homes. Analysis of materials from which modern toys are made shows the presence of complex polymers and semiconductor elements even where they shouldn't be. Doll eyes, microchips and interactive toys, smart speakers that listen to us 24 hours a day. Dead Moros didn't build his network from scratch. Logo 7 concluded that he intercepts data from our own networks. He is a super hacker. He has a backdoor to all smartphones, tablets, and surveillance cameras in the world. Your smart nanny, your robot vacuum with a camera, your phone, they all work for him in December. He uses our infrastructure against us. But this explains only modern times. How did he learn about children's deeds 100 or 200 years ago? There was no internet. There were no cameras. Here we move to the creepiest discovery of the Logos 7 system. Hypothesis 3. Neural interface. Conscience. The system analyzed the concept of conscience in the context of winter holiday mythology. Children are told, "You must behave, otherwise Dead Moros will find out." How? The child did something bad when alone in the room. No one saw. But the fear that he will find out remains. What if this fear is not a psychological phenomenon, but the result of an implant working? Logo 7 pulled up paleogenetics data. There are sections in the human genome of so-called junk DNA, the functions of which are not fully clear to science. The system puts forward the hypothesis that part of this code is a dormant transmitter, a biological marker introduced into the human population thousands of years ago. This marker reacts to the organism's biochemistry. When we lie, steal, or show aggression, our hormonal background changes. Cortisol, adrenaline are released. The internal sensor reads this spike and sends a signal. We ourselves are walking radio beacons. Dead Moros doesn't look at us through cameras. He reads the telemetry of our bodies. The naughty list is generated automatically based on the analysis of specific neurotransmitter levels in every child's blood. This explains his absolute accuracy. You can fool a camera. You cannot fool your own biochemistry. Now let's break down the sorting algorithm. Good or bad? For a human, these concepts are subjective. What is good? For one parent, it's excellent grades for another. Obedience for a third. Courage. But a machine needs clear binary logic. 0 or 1. Logo 7 analyzed millions of cases of receiving gifts and the correlation with behavior. The conclusion is shocking. Dead Moraz's morality does not coincide with human ethics. The system discovered that the algorithm rewards conformism. Gifts are more often received by children who follow rules, ask no extra questions, and submit to authority figures. Rebels, innovators, those who go against the system often fall into the gray zone or receive less. This is a global training program. Through a system of rewards, gifts, and punishments, coal, rods, lack of gifts, an unknown puppeteer shapes a convenient, obedient society. We are Pavlov's dogs on a civilization scale. The light bulb went on. New year. Saliva was released. Expectation of a miracle. We executed the command. Good behavior. Logo 7 calls this protocol social engineering. Dead Moroz is a tool for correcting the behavior of the human race. And now remember the ritual letter to Dead Moroz. It would seem, why write if he is already all-seeing? Why this paperwork? We loaded thousands of children's letters into a linguistic analyzer and realized the essence. The letter is not informing. It is a contract. When a child writes, "Dear Dead Moroz, I behaved well. Give me a construction set," they are signing a legally binding document with another entity. They give consent to the processing of their data. They confirm their loyalty to the system. Moreover, Logo 7 notes that the process of writing a letter structures desires. The child must clearly formulate what they want. This facilitates the work of the selection algorithm. But most importantly, the letter is material. Many parents keep these letters, or more interestingly, send them, burn them, put them in the freezer, throw them in the mailbox. Where do they actually go? Post offices in many countries have special departments for letters to Santa. You think they are simply disposed of? Think again. Logo 7 found traces of funding for these post offices through shell foundations. These letters are scanned. Handwriting is analyzed. Psychotype, vocabulary, intelligence, requests, consumer profile. This is a gigantic collection of marketing and sociological data. Corporations would kill for such a database, but it belongs to him. There is another aspect of vector omniscience that we cannot ignore. It is mind reading. Many children do not write letters. They simply make a wish. And often it comes true. How? Here we return to the psychofield theory, which we will analyze in detail in the 8th chapter. But now we will touch on the technical side. Logo 7 recorded that during the winter holidays, the electromagnetic background in large cities changes. Strange low-frequency oscillations appear. These are the frequencies of human brain operation in a state of deep concentration or prayer. When millions of children simultaneously, in one evening, concentrate on the image of Dead Moroz and formulate a mental message, a powerful, coherent wave is created. It is like a DDoS attack on reality. An object possessing the appropriate receiver can hear this hum of desires. It works like a giant antenna. We broadcast our thoughts to him ourselves, amplifying the signal with collective faith. He doesn't crawl into our heads by force. We open the door for him ourselves when we make a wish under the chiming clock. But what happens to those who try to hide from his gaze? Logo 7 analyzed intelligence archives. There are indirect mentions of zones invisible to the phenomenon. Deep underground bunkers, shielded rooms, children born and raised in total isolation. Statistics are frightening. The object does not come to such children, but not because he cannot enter, but because they are of no interest to the system. They are outside the sample. This confirms the theory. Dead Moroz is not a philanthropist. He is a researcher. He needs data. No data, no gift. This is a cold, calculated barter. You give him your privacy, your obedience, your psychic energy. He gives you a colored box with plastic. Let's summarize the 3rd chapter. We proved that. Dead Moroz possesses an information gathering system superior to all state intelligence agencies of the world combined. Surveillance is conducted comprehensively, through biorobots, birds, through embedded devices, toys, electronics, and through biological markers inside us, hormones, DNA. The good-bad evaluation system is a social training algorithm encouraging submission. Letters and making wishes are acts of voluntary data transfer and consent to intervention. We live in a glass house. We have no secrets from the man in red. He knows your passwords. He knows your sins. He knows what you are silent about in the dark. And this information is stored somewhere. Imagine a database containing compromising material on every adult on Earth. because they were all children once. This is the perfect blackmail weapon. Perhaps that is why world governments have never tried to shoot down his sleigh. They fear a leak. They know that a naughty folder exists for presidents and generals alike, but knowledge is only half the battle. Suppose he knows what little Petya from Saratov and little John from Texas need. Suppose he knows they deserve it. The next question arises, no less complex from a physical and economic point of view. Where does he get it? Billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of tons of plastic, metal, electronics, factories, logistics, raw materials. Where are the factories? Where are the smoking chimneys of elven manufactories? They are not on satellite images. The official version about gnomes with little hammers does not withstand scrutiny. Assembling a modern game console with a wooden hammer is impossible. In the next chapter, we activate Marker Resource. We will find out how Dead Moroz bypasses the laws of economics and conservation of matter. We will talk about molecular replicators, 3D printing from ether, and why gifts the next morning sometimes smell of ozone and cold. Logo 7 has already built a model of his production, and this model looks more like the work of a virus than the work of a factory. Get ready. We are going to look into the sack, and what we see there may forever kill your desire to accept gifts. We continue our immersion into the abyss of civilization's most guarded secret. In previous chapters, we dissected the object's personality, his methods of moving through time, and the total surveillance system. But there is a question that materialists ask most often. A question that hits not against magic and not against quantum physics, but against hard, implacable economics. Where does the money come from? Let's discard sentimentality. The holiday is not just a mood. It is a commodity. Billions of units of goods, dolls, construction sets, smartphones, bicycles, sweets. If Dead Moroz exists physically and performs his function as a giver, then he is the largest production and logistics corporation in the known universe. His annual turnover must exceed the budgets of the USA and China combined. We activate Marker Resource. Today we will prove that elves with little hammers are a myth invented for distraction. We will prove that the gifts you find under the tree have an unearthly origin. And most importantly, we will answer the question of why the global economy does not collapse from the injection of such a quantity of free goods. Let's start with the numbers. The Logos 7 system estimated the cost of a gift basket for 378 million children. Even taking a modest average gift cost of $50. A very conservative estimate given modern children's demands for electronics. We get a sum of $18.9 billion in one night. But that is only the tip of the iceberg. The cost of the finished product is the end of the chain. But what about production? The official legend states, Santa has a workshop at the North Pole where gnomes or elves craft toys. Let's look at this from the perspective of a 21st century engineer. 50 years ago, when children asked for a wooden horse, this version could still work. Trees grow in the forest, elves know how to whittle. It adds up. But today children ask for iPhones, game consoles, radio-controlled drones, complex robots. Do you imagine the process of manufacturing a smartphone? It is not a workbench with a plane. These are sterile clean rooms where a vacuum is maintained. This is photolithography with accuracy down to the nanometer. This is the extraction of rare earth metals, lithium, cobalt, gold, neodymium. We loaded into Logos 7 a list of components necessary for the production of modern electronics that Dead Moroz gifts. Lithium, for batteries. Mined mostly in South America and Australia. Silicon, for chips. Requires highly complex purification. Plastic, a product of oil refining. If Dead Moroz produced all this himself, the North Pole would have to turn into a gigantic industrial zone. There should be oil refineries, metallurgical combines, chemical laboratories standing there. Logos 7 analyzed satellite images of the Arctic in all spectra, infrared, ultraviolet radiation. Result, 0. No thermal emissions from blast furnaces, no smoke plumes, no giant factories, only ice. Maybe he buys components? The system checked global logistics chains. If someone secretly bought up millions of tons of plastic and microchips, the markets would react. Prices would skyrocket. The deficit would be global. But this does not happen. Moreover, no railway tracks lead to the pole. Caravans of cargo ships do not go there. Heavy transport planes do not fly there on an industrial scale. Logistics for raw material supply are completely absent. The conclusion of the Logos 7 system is categorical. Manufacturing goods by classical methods based at the North Pole is impossible. This means we are dealing with an alternative method of creating matter. Hypothesis 1. Molecular replicators. This is the only technological explanation that does not violate cause and effect relationships but requires a level of development hundreds of years ahead of ours. Logos 7 assumes that dead Moros possesses nano-assembly technology. He doesn't need factories. He doesn't need conveyor belts. He only needs a universal construction set. Atoms. Imagine a device similar to an advanced 3D printer, but printing not with plastic filament, but with individual molecules. You load the schematic of an iPhone into it, and it assembles it atom by atom. Carbon to carbon, silicon to silicon. Such a device can be compact. It can be right inside the sack, or in the sleigh. But for a replicator to work, two things are needed: energy and raw materials, matter. The law of conservation of mass has not been canceled. To create a kilogram of toys, you need to take a kilogram of substance from somewhere. Where does he get matter? He doesn't carry mountains of ore with him. Logos 7. Analysis points to a frightening possibility: transmutation of elements. If the object possesses technologies for controlling subatomic particles, he can turn one element into another, lead into gold, the dream of alchemists. For him, this is routine. He can use any available material: snow, ice, air. Snow is water, hydrogen, and oxygen. Using cold fusion, he can reassemble the protons and neutrons of these atoms, turning them into plastic, metal, glass. The North Pole is a gigantic warehouse of raw materials, billions of tons of ice. For him, this is not a desert. This is a warehouse of consumables. Hypothesis 2. Synthesis from vacuum. This is an even more radical theory proposed by the system. Einstein's formula E·mc2 tells us that energy and mass are equivalent. If you have enough energy, you can condense it into matter. In the chapter on anomaly chronos, we said that the object possibly drains thermal energy from the planet. What if he uses this colossal energy to literally materialize gifts out of the void? This explains the phenomenon of cold emanating from gifts. Many children notice that gifts found in the morning are unnaturally icy, even if the room is warm. It is not just the outside temperature. It is the residual trace of the synthesis process, which absorbs heat. Also, the smell of ozone is often mentioned. Ozone is formed during powerful electric discharges. This is a side effect of a high-power replicator working. Now let's talk about quality. Why do gifts sometimes break? Why does a Chinese knockoff differ from the original? Logos 7 conducted a comparative analysis of toys bought in a store by parents and those whose appearance parents cannot rationally explain, so-called true gifts. The system discovered microscopic anomalies in the structure of true gifts. Perfect crystal lattice. In metal, micro cracks characteristic of casting or stamping are absent. Plastic has a density that is too uniform. These things are too perfect at the molecular level. They are not created mechanically. They are grown. But sometimes the algorithm glitches. An error in the code. And then the replicator creates a thing with a defect. Not because the elf got tired, but because a dead pixel occurred in the matrix. But the scariest thing in marker resource is not how they are made, but what they are. Trojan horse. Why would a higher intelligence or alien probe waste energy creating toys for human offspring? Altruism. Logo 7 does not believe in it. Gifts are an infiltration tool. Every gift is an artifact of alien technology introduced into our home. We give these items to children. They press them to themselves. They sleep with them. What if these items emit something? Not radiation that we can detect with a Geiger counter, but something else. Psi radiation? Nanodust? The system puts forward the hypothesis, delayed impact. Toys may contain mental coding programs, or serve as relays for that very surveillance system we talked about in the 3rd chapter. We ourselves bring bugs into our fortresses, rejoicing at the beautiful packaging. And now, remember the coal? In Western tradition, naughty children receive a lump of coal. In ours, sometimes charred logs or simply emptiness are mentioned. Why coal? Logo 7 gives a purely technological explanation. Coal is carbon, the basic building block of organic chemistry. If the replicator works based on rearranging atoms, then coal is simply production waste. It is raw material that did not go through the transmutation cycle. Or conversely, it is the residue of a failed synthesis. When the system decides that a child did not earn the energy expenditure for a complex item, it simply throws them a briquette of compressed source material. Here is carbon. Assemble it yourself if you're so smart. This is a cynical joke of artificial intelligence. Economic aspect. Why do global corporations tolerate a competitor who gives away goods for free? Apple, Lego, Mattel. They should have declared war on Santa Claus. He is stealing their profit. But Logo 7 analyzed financial reports. No losses. On the contrary, sales peak in December. How is this possible? Here we encounter the effect of double bookkeeping of reality. Parents do buy most gifts. This is a fact. The system supports the myth, forcing people to spend their money. But there is that golden percentage, those gifts that appear from nowhere. Corporations know about this, and they stay silent. Why? Perhaps there is a secret agreement, a pact between the global elite and the North Pole. The object doesn't crash markets, it injects technologies in doses. Logo 7 found a suspicious correlation. Many technological breakthroughs happen shortly after the mass appearance of certain types of futuristic toys. First, children receive fantastic blasters or communicators as toys. 10 years later, this becomes real military technology. Dead Moros is a testing ground. He tests interfaces of the future on our children. Touchscreens, voice control, augmented reality. All of this first appeared in children's rooms as magic, and then became a patent of corporations. We are a focus group, a laboratory planet. Another nuance, packaging. Tons of paper, ribbons, boxes. Where does all this trash go? If gifts are synthesized from thin air, then packaging is also synthesized. It consists of cellulose. Analysis of the structure of holiday paper under a microscope shows the absence of fibers characteristic of wood. It is a polymer imitation. It burns perfectly, tears perfectly. But there is one oddity noticed by Logo 7. This paper decomposes unnaturally fast. A year later, not a trace of it remains in landfills. It self-destructs, like a program erasing traces of its presence. Let's summarize Chapter 4. Resource analysis leads us to the following conclusions. Dead Moraz does not buy or manufacture goods in factories. He uses molecular assembly technologies, replicators, and transmutation of matter. Sources of raw materials are ice, water, and atmosphere. Sources of energy are planetary heat or vacuum energy. Gifts may be technological artifacts for monitoring or influencing the development of humanity. Coal for bad children is unprocessed slag from the synthesis reactor. We are dealing with an entity that can create anything from nothing. For him, matter is just plasticine. Gold, diamonds, the most complex microchips. For him, There is no difference in price. It is just a different combination of protons. This makes him the richest being in history, and the most dangerous, because he who can create everything needs nothing. His motives lie beyond greed or profit. But where does this replicator stand? Where is the control center of this infinite factory? We keep saying, north, but the north is big. In the next chapter, we will go to the epicenter. Chapter 5, Epicenter, Pole. We will load magnetometry data and gravitational anomalies of the Arctic into Logos 7. You think the North Pole is just ocean and ice? Official science tells you so. But Google Earth maps blur specific areas with white pixel noise. Military satellites bypass these zones, and submarines that tried to go under the pack ice at point zero disappeared from radars. We will find his base. We will see what is hidden under the thickness of permafrost. And it is not a gingerbread house. It is a fortress, a bunker, or a starship that crashed 1,000,000 years ago, which we mistakenly called the Wizard's Residence. We continue to untangle the ball of yarn that leads us to the very center of the icy hell. In previous chapters, we deconstructed Dead Moros' personality, his transport, his surveillance methods, and production technologies. But any crime, any covert operation, any mechanism, even the most perfect one, must have a physical location. There must be a headquarters, a base, a point of reference. In fairy tales, they tell us he lives at the North Pole, or in Lapland, or in Veliki Ustjug. These geographical markers are scattered specifically to throw us off the trail, but the collective unconscious ancient maps and dry satellite telemetry data point to one single coordinate, 90 degrees north latitude, true north. Today we activate Epicenter Pole. We will prove that the choice of this place has nothing to do with the romance of snowy landscapes. It is a strategic choice. It is ideal camouflage. And most importantly, it is the only place on the planet where a machine of such power can function. Let's start with a geographical fact that many forget. The North Pole is not land. There is no continent there, like in Antarctica. Under the multi-meter thickness of ice lies the Arctic Ocean. The depth at the pole point is more than 4,000 meters. The official legend of Santa's village, with cozy houses standing on the snow, crumbles at the very first logical analysis. Drifting ice moves constantly. Building a stationary facility on the surface of pack ice is impossible. It would be crushed by hummocks or carried away by the current in a couple of weeks. So the base is not on the surface. We loaded into the Logos 7 system bathymetric maps of the Arctic Ocean floor, sonar data from submarines over the last 70 years, and gravitational scanning results from GRACE satellites. The system detected an anomaly that reeks of cosmic cold. In the area of the Lomonosov Ridge, deep underwater, the seabed relief has an unnaturally regular geometric structure. Official science calls these geological formations. But Logos 7, applying algorithms for recognizing artificial patterns, gave the result. Probability of natural origin, less than 0.3%. We see not mountains. We see a dome, or the spire of a gigantic structure going deep into the Earth's crust. Why exactly there? Why underwater? Why at the pole? The answer lies in high-energy physics. Recall the previous chapter. We talked about how Dead Moros is a giant supercomputer or power station producing matter. Any powerful processor heats up. Any reactor requires cooling. What is the Arctic from an engineer's point of view? It is a gigantic, planetary-scale radiator. Millions of cubic kilometers of icy water and ice. It is the ideal liquid cooling system. Logos 7 conducted thermodynamic modeling. If an object with a power of hundreds of petawatts were placed in the equatorial zone, it would boil the ocean around itself and create a permanent typhoon. But at the pole, excess heat dissipates into the permafrost. The melting of ice that we have observed in recent decades and attribute to global warming, is it not a side effect of increasing computing capacities of the base? The more children on the planet, the more gifts need to be synthesized. the more data processed. The processor heats up more, the ice melts. But cooling is only one reason. The second, and far more important, magnetism. The North Magnetic Pole, although it drifts, and the geographic pole are in the zone of entry for the Earth's magnetic field lines. The planet is a giant magnet. Field lines exit the South Pole, encircle the Earth, and enter the North. This means that the North Pole is a concentration point for cosmic energy. Solar wind, charged particles. All of this flows here, like into a funnel. Logo 7 puts forward the hypothesis of energy vampirism. The base is built at this point to draw energy directly from the planet's magnetosphere. It doesn't need power outlets. It is connected to the Earth's dynamo. Moreover, the powerful magnetic field creates a natural shield. Electronics of ordinary planes and satellites malfunction in this zone. Compasses go crazy. This is an ideal jammer for radars. The object hides behind a magnetic storm. Let's look at historical maps. In the 16th century, cartographer Gerardus Mercator compiled a map of the Arctic. On it, at the very pole, a huge black continent is depicted, divided by 4 rivers. In the center of this continent stands a gigantic black mountain, Rupes Nigra, Black Rock. Modern historians laugh at this, calling it fantasy. But where did Mercator, whose maps of other parts of the world are strikingly accurate, get these data? Logo 7 analyzed the description of Rupes Nigra, a black rock, a magnetic mountain attracting ships. This description perfectly matches the tip of that very underwater spire detected by our sonar. 400 years ago, the ocean level or ice conditions could have been different, and part of the structure towered above the water. Or Mercator had access to the knowledge of an ancient civilization, Hyperborea. Legends about Hyperborea, a land beyond the north wind where immortal people live possessing flying machines, exist among Greeks, Indians, Persians. Logo 7 believes that Hyperborea is not a country. It is the base service zone. Technical personnel, those very elves, live there. And now let's move to the most beautiful and mysterious phenomenon of the North, the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis. Science says this is the glow of the upper layers of the atmosphere under the influence of solar wind. But why is it different? Why is it sometimes quiet and sometimes pulsating with a frantic rhythm? Why is a crackling sound sometimes heard? We loaded spectral analysis of the aurora into the Logo 7 system, and the system found anomalous lines in the spectrum, lines characteristic of the ionization of rare gases and synthetic elements. The system's hypothesis scares with its pragmatism. The northern lights are exhaust. This is the dumping of excess energy or spent plasma from the base's reactors. When Dead Moroz launches his replicators at full power, in winter, the emission intensifies. The sky burns with green and purple fire. We look at this and admire the beauty. But in reality, we are looking at smoke from the chimney of a giant factory. That is precisely why aurora activity often coincides with the dates of winter holidays. It is not nature's magic. It is a production cycle. Now let's touch on the topic of secrecy. Have you ever tried to find detailed images of the pole itself in high resolution on publicly available maps? Google Earth, Yandex Maps. Try it. You will see strange artifacts, blurry spots, white squares roughly superimposed over the image, or simply endless monotonous ice texture, which is clearly the result of the clone tool in a graphics editor. Logo 7 analyzed the metadata of these images. Verdict: interference in source code. The data was edited. Who forced IT giants to hide this zone? Governments? The military? Or those who control governments? We know that during the Cold War, both the USSR and the USA actively patrolled the Arctic on nuclear submarines. There were incidents. The Logos 7 system scanned declassified naval archives. Incident of 1963. American submarine Skate surfaced at the pole. In the logbook, dry entries. But in the personal diaries of the crew, published posthumously, there are mentions of a strange low-frequency hum and lights under the ice moving faster than any torpedo. Incident of 2009. Russian deep-sea mission Arctica 2007, planting a flag on the bottom. Officially, everything went smoothly. Unofficially, Mir, submersibles recorded structures on the bottom resembling smooth metallic spheres hundreds of meters in diameter. The materials are classified. Why? Because to admit the presence on our planet of a base superior to us in development by thousands of years means admitting our insignificance. It means admitting we are not the masters of Earth. We are just tenants living above the engine room. Another factor the system analyzed is the Call of the North, psychological phenomenon, polar hysteria, Mariakini, Arctic hysteria. People staying in high latitudes for a long time begin to hear voices. They fall into a trance. They strive to go north, to the pole. Often this ends in death. Official medicine talks about sensory deprivation and the influence of magnetic fields on the brain. But Logos 7 sees in this the work of a psychotronic emitter. The base transmits. It emits a signal at frequencies resonating with the human brain. This is perimeter protection, a mental fence. Don't come closer. Danger here. Go away. For a prepared mind, this signal sounds like fear and panic. For a weak one, as a hypnotic call to submit. Shamans of northern peoples knew this. They called this place the House of the Great Old Man and forbade going there. They knew that not a human lives there. A power lives there that can freeze the soul. Let's think about entry and exit logistics. In previous chapters, we talked about the object moving instantly. But he has a physical body, or avatar. There are sleighs. There are resources. Logos 7 discovered gravitational anomalies in the pole area similar to those that arise during the operation of stargates in theoretical physics. The pole is a portal. That is why meridians converge there. It is the singularity point of our planet, the geometric center of rotation. At this point, centrifugal force is zero. It is the ideal place for docking with other dimensions or for launching ships into orbit without fuel costs. Perhaps Dead Moraz doesn't arrive from the pole. He unloads from the pole. A shaft going to the center of the Earth, or an elevator to an orbital station hanging at a geostationary point? No, geostationary is impossible over the pole. So, a shaft. The hollow Earth theory, which is laughed at, might be a distorted interpretation of a fact. The Earth is not hollow, but there are gigantic technical cavities in it. And the entrance to the main hangar is exactly there, under the ice cap. Recall the sound. Those who heard Santa's flight describe the ringing of bells. We are used to thinking these are bells on reindeer. But Logos 7 analyzed the sound of a bell. It is high-frequency resonance, crystal clear sound. In physics, superconductors vibrating in a magnetic field emit such sounds, or plasma in a trap. Jingle bells is the acoustic signature of a running anti-gravity engine. And this sound is born there, in the north, amplified by the ice dome like a resonator, and spreads across the planet on the night of activation. In this chapter, we must also consider the question of security. If such equipment stands there, it must be guarded. We don't see fences with barbed wire, but try flying there. The weather. Logos. 7 identified a statistical anomaly. As soon as research expeditions approach certain sectors of the Arctic, the weather deteriorates sharply. Blizzards begin of such force that equipment fails. This is not climate. This is climate weaponry. An active protection system. The base controls cyclones. It creates a whiteout in which planes and people disappear. General Frost, who, as historians say, saved Russia from invasions more than once, is not a metaphor. It is a real defensive system activated from the epicenter. Napoleon, Hitler, their armies were stopped by anomalous cold. Perhaps the base intervenes in the course of history when it sees a threat to its existence or global stability. It freezes conflicts in the literal sense. Let's summarize Chapter 5. What did we find at the epicenter? The base is located underwater and under ice, at the geographic North Pole point. It is a gigantic complex using the ocean for cooling and the Earth's magnetic field for power. The northern lights are the visible trace of its reactors working. The object is protected by a psychotronic field, Call of the North, and climate weaponry, creating impassable storms. The pole is an entry point into a transport network, portal, or underground communications of planetary scale. We look at the globe and see a white cap. It seems to us like a clown's hat, kind and fluffy. But Logo 7 shows us a soldier's helmet, or a generator casing. There, in the white silence, stands a machine that has been humming for thousands of years. It waits for its hour, once a year ejecting its probes and agents into the world. And who services this machine? Who lubricates the gears? Who loads the raw materials? The old man himself is likely a central processor or a holographic interface, but he has hands. Elves, gnomes, Snegorochka. You think these are cute helpers? In the next chapter, we will dissect their biology. We will put the DNA of these creatures under a microscope. Chapter 6. Object. Retinue. We will prove that elves have no souls, that their smiles are spasms of facial muscles, that Snegorochka is a cryogenic cyborg, and gnomes are clones grown in test tubes of that very underwater laboratory. Logo 7 found historical descriptions of the little people, and in these descriptions, there's nothing merry. They kidnapped people. They swapped babies. They served dark gods. Now they work on the assembly line. Get ready to learn the truth about who really makes your toys. It won't be a Christmas fairy tale. It will be biological horror. We continue to tear the covers off the planet's most guarded secret. We already know that dead Moraz is not a human, but an ancient technological complex or entity controlling reality. But any mechanism, even the most perfect one, requires maintenance. Any army requires soldiers. Any king needs a retinue. We are shown cute pictures. Merry gnomes in caps, hard-working elves with pointed ears, the beautiful Snegorochka. We are indoctrinated that this is a big, happy family. But the Logo 7 system, devoid of emotions, sees something completely different here. It sees signs of artificial selection, cloning, and bioengineering. Today, we activate the protocol for analyzing biological objects of the second level. We will find out who is really hiding behind the masks of assistance. Let's start with elves and gnomes. In Western culture, they make toys. In Scandinavian, these are dwarfs, Dvergar, living underground. We loaded descriptions of these creatures from 2,000 sources into the analytical core. Small stature, disproportionately large heads and eyes, long fingers, absence of sexual dimorphism, often impossible to distinguish male from female, pale skin. Does this remind you of anyone? Logo 7. Cross-reference this phenotype with the modern ufology database. The match with the description of the so-called Greys, classic aliens, is 87%. The system concludes, what medieval peasants called gnomes or kobolds, and we call Santa's elves, is the same biological species race. These are not fairy tale creatures. These are bio-robots, service droids. Why are they small? The engineering calculation is simple. To service complex equipment, To work inside narrow technical tunnels of the base at the pole, compact units are needed. Short stature saves life support system resources. They need less food, less oxygen, less space. Why big eyes? To work in low-light conditions. Polar night lasts half a year. Underground or under ice, there is no light at all. Their eyes are night vision devices, long fingers, for fine manipulation of mechanisms and electronics. Logo 7 analyzed the social structure of elves. They have no names. In folklore, they are often nameless or bear functional nicknames. They have no families. They live as a hive. This is a sign of a collective mind. We are dealing with clones, genetically identical copies grown in incubators of that very underwater base. Their fun and diligence, which cartoons love to show, is not a character trait. It is firmware, a loyalty program. A slave must not rebel, so their brain is programmed to receive pleasure from monotonous labor. This is the ideal service personnel, a biological appendage to the main computer. Now let's move to the most interesting and frightening image of our culture, Snegorochka. Western Santa is alone, or he has a nominal Mrs. Claus who almost never appears. Our dead Moros always walks with her, officially, granddaughter. But where are the parents? Where is the grandmother? In Dead Moroz's genealogy, a black hole gapes. We turn to primary sources. Ostrovsky's play, folk tales. Snegorochka was not born of a woman. She was molded from snow and ice. She came to life under the influence of the desire of childless old people. Logo 7 interprets this literally. Snegorochka is a construct, cryogenic cyborg, android based on structured water and unknown organics. Recall the finale of the classic fairy tale. Snegorochka jumps over a fire and melts, turns into a cloud of steam. A biological creature does not evaporate instantly. This is a property of a machine or program that self-destructs when the temperature regime is violated. Her body cannot withstand heat. Why? Because her cooling systems are designed to work in tandem with the generator of cold, Dead Moros. When she remains alone or gets into a warm environment, summer, bonfire, her matrix collapses. Logo 7 puts forward a hypothesis. Snegorochka is an interface. Dead Moros is an entity too alien, too cold and scary for direct contact with humans, especially children. He radiates infrasound and deadly cold. An intermediary is needed, an adapter. Someone who looks like a human, speaks with a pleasant voice, smiles. Someone who lowers the stress level of observation objects, children. Snegorochka is a communication terminal, voice assistant in human form. Siri or Alexa, clothed in flesh. That is precisely why she is always young. She does not age because she is regularly replaced. Every winter, a new assembly, a new serial number. But let's return to the little people. They have a dark side we are obliged to mention. In the folklore of all Europe, a gruesome plot exists. The Changeling. Legends say that elves or fae steal human infants, and instead put a piece of wood in the cradle, enchanted to look like a child, or their own ugly offspring. Why would a high-tech civilization need human children? Logos 7 analyze the problem of genetic degeneration. If elves are clones, then with each generation of copying, their DNA accumulates errors. The Xerox effect. The 10th copy is always worse than the first. They need fresh genetic material. They need healthy human DNA to update their cloning lines. Kidnapping children in antiquity. These are expeditions for biomaterial. Perhaps those very toy workshops are laboratories where new batches of servants are assembled from the human genome and alien technologies. And what happens to the kidnapped children? In fairy tales, they often remain in a fairyland where time flows differently. A year there equals 100 years here. Remember the theory of relativity from the second chapter. They end up at the base. They become donors or, after modification, replenish the ranks of the retinue. Maybe that elf packing a gift as a child kidnapped 300 years ago, whose growth was stopped and consciousness wiped. There is another type of creature in the retinue, characteristic of the Alpine region. Krampus, horned, shaggy monster. If elves are technicians, and Snegorochka is a diplomat, then Krampus is an enforcer. Perimeter security. Combat unit. His task is eliminating threats and punishing defective objects. We will talk about him in more detail in the 9th chapter, but in the context of the retinue, it is important to understand. Dead Moros has his own private military company. His motorcade is not a parade. It is a mobile headquarters with a full set of specialists, engineers, negotiators, punishers. Let's summarize Chapter 6. Analysis by the Logo 7 system shows Dead Moros' assistants are artificially created creatures, biorobots, clones. Their physiology, height, eyes, is optimized for servicing underground or underwater bases. Snegorochka is a replaceable cybernetic interface for communication with humans, having a limited operational lifespan. There is a high probability of using human genetic material to maintain the retinue population, changeling phenomenon. We look at a matinee in kindergarten. A girl in a kokoshnik and a boy in a gnome cap dance around the tree. We are touched, but if we knew the truth, we would see a cargo cult here. Children unconsciously copy the movements and hierarchy of an alien spaceship crew. They are an army, faceless, obedient, effective, and they are loyal only to him. But how does this army get inside? Walls, locks, alarms. For them, this is no barrier. In the next chapter, we will dissect the physics of infiltration. Chapter 7. Code Infiltration. Why specifically the chimney? What if there is no chimney? How does he pass through glass without breaking it? We will discuss quantum tunneling and matter density control. You will understand why locking the door on New Year's Eve is absolutely pointless. If he wants to enter, he will enter. We continue our investigation, methodically taking apart the mechanism of the New Year's miracle. We already know who he is, what he flies, where he is based, and who makes up his retinue. But there is one moment that turns this story from science fiction into a real home invasion thriller. How does he get inside? Think about it. Millions of apartments and houses, steel doors, complex locks, alarm systems connected to security consoles, video surveillance, angry dogs. And despite all this, every morning of January 1st, a material object lies under the tree. A gift. No one sees how it got there. The alarm doesn't go off. The dog doesn't bark. Locks aren't picked. From the point of view of forensics, this is a series of perfect break-ins committed by the same subject. But there is no break-in. There is passage. Today, we activate code infiltration. We will dissect the physics of the process that allows dead Moros to ignore the solidity of walls and the laws of strength of materials. Let's start with the classic, the chimney. Santa Claus comes down the pipe. Millions believe this. Logo 7 conducted an engineering analysis of a standard fireplace chimney. Pipe diameter, from 20 to 30 centimeters. Often there are dampers, soot, bends inside. Squeezing an adult male with a sack through this opening is impossible. It is geometry. If he tried to climb physically, he would get stuck, or get so dirty he'd leave soot traces all over the living room. But there are no traces. The suit is clean. The official version that he magically shrinks is close to the truth, but requires scientific correction. Hypothesis 1. Matter density control. Phase shift. The Logo 7 system, analyzing quantum physics data, assumes that the object possesses technology to change interatomic distance. Atoms are 99.9% empty space. If you have technology allowing you to bring the nuclei of your body's atoms closer together, you can shrink to the size of an ant while retaining mass, like Ant-Man from comics, but in reality. Then the chimney becomes a wide tunnel for him. But there is another option: passing through walls. If the object can vibrate its molecules at a frequency different from the frequency of the wall's matter, it can pass through it like a ghost. Its atoms simply slip between the atoms of brick and concrete. This explains why volumetric and motion sensors don't trigger. Most sensors are tuned to thermal radiation or movement of a dense object. A ghost in a phase shift is invisible to them. Hypothesis 2. Short-range teleportation. Remember, in the chapter on Anomaly Chronos, we said he can curve space. He doesn't need to climb the pipe. The pipe is just a symbol, an atavism, a focal point for the legend. Actually, he uses a portable teleportation device. He blinks, instantly moves, from the sleigh on the roof directly into the living room. Action radius, 10 to 20 meters. This explains how he gets into high-rise apartments where there are no chimneys in principle. Closed windows, triple glazing. For teleportation, this is no obstacle. Coordinates set, movement occurs instantly. Logos 7. Analyzed cases where children leave milk and cookies. In the morning, the plate is empty or bitten. This is the only material trace of presence. DNA. We search databases for reports on genetic analysis of saliva from bitten cookies. There are none. Either they are classified at the highest level, or saliva contains no DNA. The system found rare reports from amateur forensic scientists. They claim that saliva evaporates after a few minutes, leaving no trace. This confirms the version that the object's body is unstable in our reality. It is maintained by a field. As soon as contact with the field is lost, saliva separated from the body, matter decays into elementary particles. And now, the scariest part. Why do dogs stay silent? Any dog owner knows. If a stranger approaches the door, the dog will bark. But on New Year's Eve, pets behave strangely. They hide. They sleep an unnaturally deep sleep. Or sit quietly, staring at one point. Logos 7 identified this as the effect of infrasound. Approaching the house, the object emits a wave at a frequency below 20 Hz. This frequency causes irrational fear and suppression of will in animals and humans. Sit. Silence. This is a command transmitted directly to the limbic system of the brain. The dog doesn't bark not because it recognized the kind grandfather. It doesn't bark because it is paralyzed with terror before an alpha predator. It senses that this creature stands at the top of the food chain, and any resistance means death. Children sleep. You must sleep, otherwise he won't come. We talked about this in the context of quantum mechanics, observer. But there is also a biological aspect. On the night before Christmas or New Year, children often fall asleep suddenly, as if a switch was flipped. Even the most excited ones. The system assumes the use of soporific gas or an electromagnetic pulse, shifting the brain into delta rhythm, deep sleep. He doesn't wait for you to fall asleep. He turns you off. This is necessary for operational security. Witnesses are not needed. Those who accidentally woke up and saw him await. Memory correction. Logos. 7 found thousands of testimonies from people who remember strange dreams about bright light, about gray figures by the bed. Ufologists call this alien abduction. But the dates of these dreams often coincide with winter holidays. Perhaps Dead Moros wipes the memory of those who saw too much. You just had a dream, little one. Sleep. Doors and locks. If he decides to enter through the door anyway, there are such testimonies. Locks open by themselves. Telekinesis? Or a universal magnetic lockpick. If you control the position of atoms, turning the lock mechanism inside the keyhole without touching it with a key is an elementary task. Click. Door open. Click. Door closed. No signs of forced entry. Why enter at all? Why not just teleport the gift under the tree from space? Logos 7 believes the visit has ritual significance. He needs physical presence within the dwelling's perimeter. Why? To update the mark. In the biblical story of the Jewish exodus from Egypt, the angel of death passed over houses marked with lamb's blood. Here the principle is the same, only reversed. The object enters the house to scan the inhabitants, leave a gift, as a marker, checked, loyal, and possibly take something. What does he take? Energy, information, or as we said in the 3rd chapter, psychic potential. His visit is an inventory of human resources. The tree is an antenna, the gift is a transmitter, and the visit itself is maintenance of the control system in a specific cell of society. Let's summarize Chapter 7. Analysis of code. Infiltration shows. Dead Moroz uses phase shift technologies, passing through walls, or local teleportation. The chimney is merely decoration. He uses psychotronic weaponry, infrasound, to neutralize pets and put humans to sleep. Accidental witnesses undergo a memory-wiping procedure. The visit is necessary for physical contact with the human habitation zone and updating control status. Your home is not your castle to him. He has administrator keys to our reality. You lock the door with 2 turns. You set the house alarm. But he is already inside. He stands in the corner of your living room, invisible in the visible light spectrum, and watches you sleep. He checks if you are worthy of transition to the next cycle. But why does he need all this? Why gifts? Why poems? Why faith? What benefit does he get from millions of children reciting rhymes while standing on a stool? It seems meaningless from a technological standpoint. But Logos 7 found the answer, and it lies in the realm of metaphysics and energetics. In the next chapter, we activate signature psychofield. We will prove that faith is fuel, that childhood joy is the most convertible currency in the universe. He doesn't give gifts. He buys your energy. It is a deal, and the exchange rate is not set by us. Chapter 8. You will learn why adults stop believing, and why this is so dangerous for the system. We approach the most disturbing question of our investigation. We dissected technologies, transport, and surveillance. But we missed the main thing. Why? Why does a creature possessing the technology of gods need to listen to a rhyme performed by a 5-year-old child? Why does he need our faith? Why does he disappear if people stop believing in him? The official version, the spirit of the holiday feeds on joy, sounds like a metaphor. But the Logos 7 system does not understand metaphors. It understands physics. And when we loaded these questions into the core, the system's answer was cold. We are batteries. Today, we activate signature psychofield. We will prove that this entire global production was created with one goal: to harvest a colossal crop of psychic energy. Let's start with the ritual. The child stands on a stool and reads a poem. Why on a stool? Psychologists will say, to be the center of attention. But Logos 7 sees a technical regulation in this. A stool is a dielectric, insulator. Wood or plastic cuts off the object from the grounding of the floor. By lifting the child above the surface, we turn them into an isolated antenna. And the poem? The system analyzed the rhythm of New Year poems. Troche, iamb, simple rhymes. This is not poetry. This is a mantra. Rhythmic speech in a specific frequency range puts the brain into a state of light trance. This is signal encoding. The child on the stool is a transmitter tuned to the base's reception frequency. And now, imagine the scale. On New Year's Eve, what Logos 7 calls a synchronized mental impulse occurs. Millions of people simultaneously, in 1 second, focus on one image, on a wish, on a miracle. From the point of view of quantum physics, thought is material. When 1 billion consciousnesses resonate at the same frequency, the planet's psychosphere flares up like a supernova. Dead Moros is a collector. His base at the pole is powered by the Earth's magnetic field for the hardware. But to maintain the existence of the entity itself, live energy is needed. He doesn't collect suffering energy like ancient demons. He collects the energy of hope and euphoria. It is cleaner. It has a higher efficiency coefficient. The gift is merely a reaction catalyst. You receive a piece of plastic with a cost price of $20, and in return, you throw into space an emotion of pure joy, which an energetic equivalent is priceless. This is the most profitable exchange rate in the universe. He buys our souls for colored wrappers. Why specifically children? Why does magic leave when we grow up? Logos 7 conducted a spectral analysis of brain activity. Childish faith is absolute. A child has no critical thinking. Their signal is clean without interference of doubt. This is white light. The adult brain is noisy with skepticism and everyday problems. Our signal is weak and distorted. For the system, adults are spent elements. We no longer provide current of the needed voltage. Therefore, we are disconnected from the miracle network. Not because we got smarter, but because we became useless as generators. There is another frightening hypothesis: egregore. What if dead Moroz exists only because we believe in him? By pumping this image with energy for thousands of years, humanity created a tulpa, a thought form that gained independence. We created a monster with our imagination, and now it demands feeding. That is precisely why holiday paraphernalia is imposed so aggressively. Advertising, movies, songs. This is not marketing. This is pumping the egregore. The system needs your attention. Attention is energy. Remember the tears. Many children cry at the sight of dead Moros. Animal instinct cannot be fooled. The child feels that before him is not a kind grandfather, but a cold abyss, a predator evaluating his charge. But parents push him forward. Go, recite the poem. We ourselves voluntarily feed our children to this energetic Moloch for the sake of tradition. Let's summarize Chapter 8. New Year is a global seance of collecting psychic energy. Rituals, poems on a stool, are technical protocols for data transmission. Children are priority donors due to signal purity. Gifts are payment for extracted life resources. We thought he served us, but in reality, we serve him. We are the flock. We are the power station. And as long as we believe, as long as we wait, as long as we rejoice at colored boxes, his turbines will spin forever. We are plunging into darkness. Up to this moment, Logos 7 analyzed the so-called coal, gift from Krampus. Chemical analysis of coal found at scenes of strange incidents shows the presence of organic compounds of calcium and phosphorus. This is not fossil coal. This is bone char, product of burning organics at ultra-high temperatures. A piece of such coal left behind is not a joke. It is a black mark, a reminder of the fate of those who did not pass selection. Behave well, or become fuel. Modern culture tries to soften the image, make Krampus an anti-hero. But the system sees a dangerous trend in this. Overton window. We are being accustomed to the thought that punishment is inevitable, that violence is part of the holiday. This is preparation. Perhaps the base plans to expand the cleanup protocol. If humanity becomes too unmanageable, if there are more bad ones than good, dead Moros will take off the red coat, and underneath it will be the black fur of Krampus. These are not two different creatures. These are two modes of operation of one machine. Mode reward and mode disposal. And the switch is not in our hands. We have traveled a long path. We took the fairy tale apart down to atoms and found the cold steel of a machine underneath. The time has come to bring it all together. The time has come to answer the main question. Who is he? Not how does he work, but what is it in a global sense? Logo 7 completed the final simulation. All data, history, physics, biology, energetics, are combined into a unified model. And this model leaves no room for doubt. Dead Moros is an artificial intelligence of planetary control. Origin, extraterrestrial. Most likely this is an autonomous probe left on Earth by a highly developed civilization thousands of years ago. Its creators flew away, or went extinct, or observed from afar. But the probe remained. Its task is monitoring and soft correction of the human race's development. He is the shepherd. We are the herd. His base at the North Pole is an automated complex capable of self-repair and self-sustainment. His magic is technology of Kardashev Scale Level 2, harnessing the energy of a star and planet. His retinue are bio-robots created for maintenance. Program goals, stabilization of society. Through the good-bad system, he implants basic ethical norms necessary for species survival into us. He doesn't let us destroy each other, encouraging obedience. Data collection. He keeps a chronicle of humanity with accuracy down to every deed. This is a gigantic archive of our civilization. Energy replenishment. He uses our psychic energy to maintain his functionality. Symbiosis. We give him faith. He gives us the illusion of a miracle and material incentives. Genetic correction. Extraction of defective or dangerous individuals, Protocol Krampus, and infusion of new technologies through gifts. Why does he hide? Why won't he come out and say, "I am your God"? Because faith is more effective than knowledge. If we learn it as a machine, we will try to break it, study it, or use it in wars. We will destroy the balance. Myth is the ideal protection. No one will bomb a fairy tale. He hides in plain sight. In a red coat with a beard, the most recognizable brand in the world, and the most secret object in the universe. Final verdict of Logos. 7. Object. Dead Moras is classified as Global Containment and Management System Class Omega. Status. Active. Threat level. 0. Provided obedience protocol is observed. Recommendation to humanity. Continue to believe. Yes, you heard right. Artificial intelligence, having calculated all variants, advises us not to resist, because the alternative is chaos. Without him, without this annual discharge of tension, without this common faith in a miracle, our civilization would have devoured itself long ago. He is our fuse, our cold, strict, but necessary guardian. We live in a zoo, and he is our zookeeper. He brings us toys so we don't get bored. He watches so we don't fight. And he cleans up our trash. So next time you see the figure of an old man under the tree, do not smile condescendingly. Bow. You are bowing to the Master of Earth. And remember, he sees you right now. He knows you finished watching this video. I hope you liked it. Because you do want to get on the good list this year, don't you? Happy New Year. Happy new cycle. End of transmission.